Chapter 8. The Sorrowful Heart.
Cloud and Aerith stared at one another, both in shock. The room was silent aside from the crackling of the fire in the fireplace. It seemed like an eternity until something happened and it cut through Aerith like a knife. Cloud's horror-filled eyes narrowed and showed all his fury. He jumped from the bed, reaching for the pelt. He held it in his hand, wanting to put it on. He wanted to hide from her. He wanted to not be seen. Yet when he realized what was done, he rounded on Aerith.
Why did you do it?
However, Cloud did not give her time to reply.
Who did you talk to? Who put this idea in your head?
He demanded, and grabbed her roughly by the wrist. Aerith cried as his hands crushed her flimsy wrist. She dropped to her knees and eyes began tearing up. Cloud's eyes were vicious and demanded an answer.
Mother!
Cloud let go of her wrist and let out a string of curses. Out of sheer anger, he threw over the table in the room where Aerith would eat, sending it crashing to the floor. Aerith shrieked and pushed herself to the corner of the room, away from Cloud in terror, but the Wolf Prince rounded her up once again. With her back to the wall, Cloud lifted her off the floor and pinned her there.
Do you realize what you have done? Do you?
Aerith was too frightened to answer. She turned her face away from the prince. However, he took her face in his hands and forced her to face him.
Look at me.
Aerith kept her eyes shut tight, afraid. She never saw Cloud so angry before. He never was this angry with her before. He had been so kind and gentle, and now she was afraid that he would strike her.
I said look at me!
Slowly, she opened her eyes, still frightened. Her body was shaking, and she wished she could disappear through the wall. Cloud's grip on her face tightened, the muscles in his body rippling with power.
You wanted to see me. Go ahead and look. Take a good look. Are you satisfied?
He squeezed her face hard, enough to cause her pain. Aerith whimpered, and he continued his pressure, trying to force out an answer. Aerith let out a cry and pleaded.
Please, Cloud, stop!
Tears spilling out like a fountain down her face. The tears flowed down his fingers and over his hand. Cloud's eyes flickered for a moment as he saw Aerith breaking down before him. He let her go, and she crumpled into a heap on the floor. Her body was shaking uncontrollably. She brought her arms around her and sobbed, finding it hard to breathe. Cloud turned from her and squatted to the floor. He gathered the pelt and held it to him, unable to hide in it. He let out a groan, shaking his head. Hearing Aerith behind him sobbing broke his heart, and he knew he was the cause of it. His reaction was terrible, and yet he wanted to justify it. But how could he? If he had been in the same position as Aerith was, he would have done the same. It was human curiosity. It killed him, though, to hear her like this, and yet he could not go near her.
I'm sorry.
Her apology stabbed him through the heart. It then got up. He felt heaviness in his chest as he stared at the flames in the fireplace. Then with one quick motion he flung the pelt into the fire. The moment the pelt hit the flames, the fire crackled loudly. The young princess looked up and watched the red and orange flames become an eerie black. As she watched the flames dance around, Cloud never once flinched. He turned to the princess, his expression so heartbreaking that Aerith could not even say a word.
Goodbye, princess. Go home to your family.
Cloud's body slowly became transparent, fading slowly into the flames. He was leaving her. For a moment, Aerith felt her heart stop, but the tears flowed.
Cloud, what's happening?
I have lost.
Lost? Lost what?
I was cursed into the form of a wolf by the son of Genova. The only way to reverse it was to find a maiden who would allow me into her bed for 1 year. You were never supposed to see my true form for that year. If only you could have held out for that year. Now I must return to him as a slave.
Please don't go. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
She reached out to him, but the flame shot out at her, forcing her to step back. Terrified, she looked at Cloud, who was growing fainter as the flame swallowed him. She begged him again not to leave.
I have to go to the Palace of Genova, within the Forgotten City.
Aerith tried to inquire where this Forgotten City is, but it was too late. The flames completely engulfed Cloud, and he was gone. The flames died instantly after she was alone in the dark room. For a moment, everything was silent. The princess breathed, staring into the darkness. Then Aerith ran. She glided into the overturned table and took her several tries to find the door. Her legs carried her down the high towering, screaming loudly for the servants.
Hello?
Her voice echoed through the halls as she shouted for Tifa, Vincent, Yuffie, and the others, but no one came to her aid. She ran wildly through the halls, banging on the doors, but no one answered. Without hesitating, she burst into the rooms of the servants and found each one empty. Items lay skewed as if someone had just been there. Beds looked as if they were slept in, but no one was in them. Aerith screamed out for help before a realization hit her. She was alone. Cloud was not the only one who had been taken, but the servants as well. The princess slumped to the floor in shock. This was all her fault. Had she not listened to her mother, Cloud would still be here and safe and sound. If only she knew. If only someone had told her. Aerith slapped her forehead in realization. They could not tell her. When she had asked, they wanted to but could not. It must have been a part of the curse. Aerith buried her face in her hands. The young princess began to sob once again. When she felt a push on her shoulder, she almost expected to see Cloud, but instead saw Red 13 gently rubbing his nose against her. She threw her arms around her pet, hugging him. Aerith was grateful that her pet was here and with her, but it did not ease the pain that was stabbing at her heart and the failure she felt. Red 13 let out a little whine before licking her cheek in comfort.
13, I am such a fool. I commanded Cloud and his servants to a hope of fate. What have I done? They could be suffering, and it's my entire fault. What can I do?
Aerith hugged her pet, tears trickling down her cheek and onto his fur. How could she even find the Wolf Prince? She had no idea where this forgotten city was. She never even knew it existed. As she sat there holding her pet, she could hear Cloud's voice echoing in her head, telling her,
Go home to your family.
Maybe I should go home to my family. I am nothing but trouble, and all I did was to hurt Cloud.
Red 13 looked at her sadly before nudging her hand with his nose. Aerith looked down at her left hand at the engagement ring Cloud had given her. She brought it up closer and felt her stomach tightening. She had no right to wear this or the necklace. She ripped the items from and threw them away from her in anger.
I'm sorry!
She cried out to the heavens as if Cloud could hear her.
I am so sorry.
Red 13 whimpered next to her. Aerith slammed her fist against the ground in anger while crying out again.
I loved him, and how did I show it by betraying his trust? I don't deserve anything.
Red 13 moved away from her, and when he returned to her, he dropped the necklace and the ring in front of her. The princess stared at them, her heart aching painfully as she stared at what Cloud called mere trinkets. They were not mere trinkets to the princess. They were a sign of his love, and it hurt. It hurt so deep within her core that she wanted to rip out her heart and throw it away. Yet Cloud did not deserve to suffer for her mistake. Aerith gathered up the ring and the necklace and placed them back on her. She picked herself up from the floor and wiped her tears away.
I'm going to find Cloud, even if I have to search every inch of this world. I am going to find him and free him and return these to him.
Determined to find Cloud, Aerith ran through the castle corridors to the library. There she was able to find a map of the world, but sadly no markings that said Forgotten City. She rolled up the map along with a compass and placed it in a bag. She also brought enough food that she could carry within it. Next, she scurried off into a room and changed into a simple pink dress, brown boots, and a hooded red cloak. She decided this would be easier to walk in than heels in one of the fancy dresses. When she made her way back down to the main hall, she came to a room that housed the castle's weapons. Curiously, Aerith headed inside with Red 13 behind her. Inside she saw an assortment of weapons, swords of every length and size, bows and arrows, spears, and weapons that Aerith had never seen before. The young princess never used a weapon in her life, but she knew the dangers of going into the forest. After deliberating, she decided on a staff. It was light and easy to use, and it would help her with walking if need be. Once she finished collecting everything, the princess stood at the entrance of the castle. She stared out into the sky, the morning sun peeking over the horizon. She took a deep breath and looked at Red 13.
I want to ask you to come with me. It will be dangerous, and if you want, you can go back home to mother and father.
The pet snuffed, as if angry that she would even suggest he would not join in on such a dangerous quest. Aerith smiled and patted his head.
Thank you.
Aerith and Red 13 had been traveling for days since his departure from Cloud's palace. The forest proved very dangerous, but Aerith's faithful pet proved more than enough for the creatures that lurked within. When they left the forest, Aerith and Red 13 traveled along a dirt path. The young princess stared at the map as they walked.
I wonder how long until we reach the city. If I had a chocobo, we could get there faster.
Aerith smiled at him as she rolled up the map.
We should get there fast as we can. Hopefully I can find a place that won't let me have a chocobo, so we'll be able to cover more ground.
She patted him gently and then continued down the road. The two never reached the city, for on the path they were taking, the two came across a tent. It was decorated with elaborate beading, and a large pair of dice knotted into the tent on the side. The young princess stared at the tent curiously. She wondered who would live in such a thing. She looked at her pet and then back at the tent.
Maybe someone inside can tell us if we need a town.
The princess walked around and found the tent door flaps closed. With nowhere to knock, the princess called out for someone inside. When no one answered, she looked at her pet and shrugged. She called out again, but there was still no response.
Maybe no one is here.
Or perhaps they're right behind you.
The princess jumped, turning around. She expected to see a person, but saw no one. She looked around and saw no one.
Down here, please.
Aerith dropped her head and gasped. The person in front of her was not a person at all, but a cat. The cat was black and white. It wore a red cape around its neck, white gloves, brown boots, and a golden crown on its head.
Hello, may I help you?
If you can, may you tell us if we're near any town?
The cat stared at her, then scratched his chin.
You're about half a day's walk to the nearest town. If you had a chocobo last, then you would only be a few hours.
Thank you for your help. Come, F13. We have a long walk ahead of us.
She turned to leave when the cat's eyes widened slightly. He noticed the long chain around her neck and the ring on her finger. She had to be someone of great importance. He smirked and then jumped in front of her. The princess had to stop suddenly, or she would have stopped on him.
Why not rest in my tent?
I'm sorry, but I have to get the nearest town.
Oh, but I can read your fortune.
Read my fortune?
Have you not heard of me? I am Cait, Sith, the fortune teller. I can see into the future and tell you your fortune.
Aerith's eyes widened and hopefully asked,
Could you tell me where I can find someone?
Lassie, it's all in the cards. Please step into my humble abode.
Pulling out a deck of cards, as if by magic, Cait Sith leaped into his tent, undoing the ties so Aerith and Red 13 could enter. Inside, the tent was dark, while the lining was covered in star patterns with a sun and a moon on either end. In the center was a small table surrounded by 2 chairs. The table was covered with a beautiful blue and gold cloth. Cait Sith ushered her to sit on the left side of the table. He sat on the other side, placing the deck of cards on the table. He cut the cards himself and then placed them at the center of the table, and asked Aerith to cut the deck herself.
Tell me your name and then ask your question.
Before I do, may I ask you more than one question?
Cait Sith pondered this before nodding his head.
For you, Lassie, I will allow it. Now ask your first question.
Aerith took a deep breath. The first question she wanted to ask was the one that caused her so much uneasiness.
My name is Aerith. My question is, will I be able to find Cloud?
The very thought of not knowing if she would ever find Cloud frightened her. She wanted to know if her trip would be in vain or not. However, even if the cat did say she could find him, the princess refused to give up. He laid out 3 cards after she asked. He flipped them over one by one and made a noise. He indicated the card on the far left. It looked like a woman.
Aye, Lassie, you see this left card? In this reading, this card represents an important element of your past. This card is called Daughter of Stones. It is telling me that you are taking responsibility for something far greater than yourself. It shows you courage, love, and dedication. In layman's terms, it means inner beauty.
Aerith's eyes widened. The next card was flipped upside down, unlike the first card.
This card represents a deciding element of the present. This card, Son of Wands, when reversed means difficulty and conflict. You are going to have to overcome some obstacles, but the card says it will show you the strength of your character.
And the last card?
The last card represents a critical element for the future. The card, Nine of Stones, when reversed means misusing material gain. In other words, greed.
Cait Sith rubbed his chin as he pondered the last card.
It seems whatever trial you are enduring to find this cloud, greed will be a deciding factor.
So will I find him?
It seems the cards say you will. However, when and where you will find him, they do not say.
Aerith looked down at Red 13, frowning. So it could be days, weeks, or years until she found Cloud. Her frown deepened. The cat's whiskers twitched as he grabbed a deck of cards and placed them in a neat pile. He shuffled them quickly and placed them on his table again.
And your next question?
The princess took a deep breath and asked,
Where is the Forgotten City?
Cait Sith sucked in a sharp breath, almost stumbling out of his chair.
Is something wrong?
It's just the cards won't tell me such a thing.
To this, the brunette frowned again. However, at this point, Cait Sith fished out a crystal ball from beneath the table. He sat in it in the center and grinned again.
You must concentrate real hard and focus on this crystal ball. Your little kitty cat, too.
Red 13 growled slightly at the comment. Cait Sith did not seem too scared by this. However, both the princess and the red beast were staring at the crystal ball. Aerith and Red 13 waited for something to happen.
Look into the crystal ball. Look into the crystal ball.
The two were staring intently when all of a sudden there was a loud bang and a flash of light. The next thing Aerith and Red 13 knew, they were lying in a hole. She looked up, wondering what happened when she saw Cait Sith above them smirking. Then, to Aerith's horror, she saw the little cat wearing the necklace Cloud had given her while he was throwing and catching the ring in his paw.
You're pretty dumb, little girl. It was like taking candy from a child.
Give those back!
Cait Sith picked up Aerith's backpack and smirked as he discovered all the food inside as well as the maps and compass.
Ha! Today is my lucky day! Farewell, Miss Aerith, and good luck getting out of that hole!
The cat cackled as he walked away with her belongings. Aerith growled and tried to get up, but found the hole very slippery to move in. Red 13 whimpered as Aerith collided with him while trying to get out from the hole.
Just wait until I get my hands on that cat.
Cait Sith had made his way down the path. He was on top of the world as he marched down with his head held high. He had enough food to eat for days and things to barter for money. He almost felt bad for the girl, but one glance at the ring and necklace and he forgot all about her. As he walked, he noticed a wagon being pulled by a chocobo heading his way. He could see a good deal of items on the back of the wagon. An evil glint caught his eye as a plan formulated in his head. As the wagon approached, the cat hid behind a large rock holding a pair of dice in his paws. He shook the dice, ready to throw them right in front of the chocobo. The wagon approached and he brought his arm back when he heard a growl.
There he is!
Cait Sith turned around to see Aerith and Red 13 behind him. He gawked at them, unable to believe they got out of those traps so quickly. Aerith glared at him, and her pet was showing his teeth threateningly. Both of them were covered in dirt from climbing out of the dirt hole.
You got out of the hole. It was a joke, I swear.
A joke? You stole my things and demand them back!
Well, you see...
Cait Sith began, but Nana growled loudly, approaching him. Cait Sith gulped loudly and scratched the back of his head.
Give them back or else!
Yeah! Alright, I know when I'm beat.
He held up his paws in defeat.
Ah! Look out behind you!
Aerith spun around, expecting to see something, but saw nothing. When she turned back around, Cait Sith was running away with her things. Cait Sith looked over his shoulder to see the princess and her pet chasing after him. He huffed and puffed as he ran, finding the bag heavy for his tiny body. Yet the little cat had another trick up his sleeve. He dropped the bag but continued to run with the necklace and ring. He hoped that maybe that would give him an edge. When he discovered his pursuers were still literally on his tail, he took out the dice he had earlier. He grinned wickedly and stopped running and holding his paws up again. Aerith and Red 13 surrounded him.
Are you giving back my things?
Aerith demanded, holding out her staff at him.
Yes, I surrender. I just cannot outrun you.
Aerith held out her hand for the object, but as Cait Sith opened his paw, the dice landed on the ground. With a loud bang, Aerith and her pet were thrown from their feet and landed hard on the ground, deceiving them once again. He spun the necklace round his finger and held the ring in his other.
You are too naive, Miss Aerith.
As he began to walk away.
I am just too smart for— Whoa! Ow!
Without watching where he was going, Cait Sith had walked directly into a hole. It was not just any hole. It was the same hole he used to trap the princess and her pet. The cat groaned when he landed hard. When he woke up, he shook his head, trying to get the cobwebs out.
Well, look at this, Red 13.
Cait Sith looked up above him to see the girl with her arms crossed and a devilish smile on her face. She was holding the ring and the necklace in her hands.
Oh, come on! Oh, you wouldn't leave a poor defenseless cat in a hole, would you?
Why should I not? You tricked me. You stole my things. You hurt my pet and I. And also wasted our time. We are on a journey. You are an awful creature.
Please, I cannot climb out! I promise I will make it up to you.
Aerith turned her head away.
There's nothing you can do.
I can tell you where the Forgotten City is!
Aerith looked at him suspiciously.
How do I know you are telling the truth?
Well, it is not I who knows where it is, but someone else who does. You said you were looking for this man, Cloud, was it? He is the Wolf Prince, isn't he?
You know of him?
Our paths have crossed, but if it is true that he went to the Forgotten City, then there is no possible way for you to find it unless you know where it is.
How do I know if you're not just lying to save your hide?
Trust me, this man I know is very wise. If he doesn't know where it is, then no one else does. Please, I give you my word that I will take you to him.
Aerith looked skeptical. She thought it over in her head. If Cait the Sith was telling the truth and knew someone who could tell her Cloud's whereabouts, it would be a great assistance. She had no one else to turn to, and how many people would even know of such a place?
I have your word?
Yes, yes!
Aerith lowered her staff into the pit. Cait the Sith grabbed on and she fished him out. After brushing his fur off, the cat gave the princess a low bow.
Let us start anew. I am Cait the Sith, and my dear, I would be delighted to take you to your friend.
I am Princess Aerith, and for your sake, you better not be lying to me. I had enough games for one day.
I promise.
The cat swore, crossing his heart. With her new companion, the three set off for a new destination, yet all her mind could think about was Cloud. All her heart could feel was agony of her betrayal. In the end, all she wanted to do was set things right, even if Cloud did not forgive her.